One, two, three, four, five, Big Gun, keep my favorite.
What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big John and G, the two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming.
My number 5, Innsmouth Escape by Twilight Creations. This game is good for 2 to 5 players ages 12 and up, and should run about 30-35 minutes or so for you to play. Now, in this game, it is the all that is hunting the one. It is like a Cthulhian game of manhunt, in a sense. I mean, a lot of games run it so it's like the one versus the all, like a game master, dungeon master style, though not all. And this is one of the not all. This is definitely a crazy Lovecraftian inspired game of hide and seek and manhunt. Probably one of the craziest that I've played. So one of the things that draws me to this all hunting one game is the hidden movement aspect of it. And I've been a fan of this ever since I was a kid, and I first came across it with the old Scotland Yard game. And this brings that to this dark mythos sort of world setting. The human in the game, the student, is the one that is hiding from all of the deep ones, the other players. And the human is secretly moving along the board. I like that, using cards to predetermine like what their movement is going to be, where they're going to, while the deep ones are trying to corral in order to get and capture and stop this human. And that's so much fun. The fact that the rules of the game itself are fairly simple, and that it has a quick, easy combat system is another thing that makes this game easy to get down to the table time and time again. Now, there are tons of miniatures in this also. If you like miniatures, whether painting them or not painting them, there are so many Deep One miniatures. I think this is Shoggoth. I know they can summon Shoggoth. I can't even remember. I have so many Shoggoth miniatures with other games. But there are tons of miniatures with this that are really just fun to see out on the board. And, I mentioned Scotland Yard. And I have to admit that this does have a little bit of a feel to that, combined with maybe another Twilight Creation game, that's Zombies. Bunch of exclamation points at the end. Zombies kind of meets Scotland Yard. If you can picture those two games, then you have a pretty good idea of what this is like. So it's not a big game. It doesn't have a lot of components, which is another good thing that I enjoy about the game, and that just makes it faster to start once the game is on the table. So it's a really fun back and forth hidden movement. Actually, all these games are pretty much going to have this last descriptor here, and that's like cat and mouse. But it's true, it is the hunt. The hunt that the deep ones are on against the human is really fun. So that's the number 5 on my list, Innsmouth Escape. 4. My number 4. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game. There's a few with this title and very close titles. This is the one I'm talking about is the one by Hasbro and Milton Bradley. And what I find fun about this is that it does take a popular 90s TV show, which itself was based on a sort of cult popular movie, as its base. So it has this built-in followers, franchise, concepts, characters, and storylines already there. And depending on your age category, these are going to be, well known to you. At least at least for the first 4 seasons. Now, another thing that I think is really fun about this game is the one player. This is a more typical one versus all, with the one versus the all, as opposed to the all versus the one I just described in the previous game. So with this one, the one player is going to get to choose which of the master villains he's going to be. You know, he or she can be the master, the judge, the mayor, or Adam. And it's going to be reliving like a season of the Buffy TV show through the villain that you're facing. This game has a fast and simple battle system, which is always a bonus into any game, because it seems like one of the things that can slow down a game, an action game, more than anything else, is the action, is the combat. And this does a pretty good job of getting through it fairly quickly enough. And that's always a bonus for any game, I think. So now, since we're dealing with vampires, and because of Oz being a werewolf, werewolf stuff, and also magic. Certain magic needs certain circumstances to be cast or boosted with. So what I'm getting to is it has a really cool, interesting day-night cycle set in the game, specifically to cover these things. To cover when Oz can be a werewolf, because that's pretty OP when he's a werewolf. Also, like, for the game has these evil deck for the evil guy, and there are certain cards that will be able to be drawn, used, or just drawings themselves, really, when the moon cycle hits its certain spots. And, you know, there's other effects that you can be gained depending on what phase the moon is in, like your spells or rituals might be affected by this. So, I mean, I like the way they totally incorporated the moon system in a very thematically correct way. You know, I find the game being a very good balance between strategy and luck factor that's going to play into it. And that balance is pleasant, because so many times a game can fail because it seems like it's too much of one or the other. So that's why the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game has made my number 4 spot. My number 3, Fury of Dracula. So this is a Fantasy Flight Games title that's good for 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and this is going to take you 120, maybe 180 minutes. This is a big game. This isn't just a big game, though. This is an excellent recreation and sort of epilogue, if you will, to Bram Stoker's Dracula. The way it captures the feel of the story itself and projects it forward in the timeline in order to give us this plot of the Count returning isn't just brilliant, but it actually works very well. Now, the cat and mouse chase running down through Europe and following this beautiful old school style map of ancient Europe is a beautiful thing. It's an absolutely fun thing. The hidden movement aspect of the Dracula character and him leaving clues or minions behind traps in certain cities that he's already passed through, it takes the game beyond just a hidden movement game, I think, because so many of them, there aren't necessarily a lot of clues that are being dropped constantly by you. And so this game brings that forward, and it does it in a sense that still doesn't make it easy for the human hunters. It doesn't give them an overt advantage at all, but it adds on to this mystique of the theme and the genre and the atmosphere of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And it feels completely ripped from his journals. Like if he was writing a Dracula 2, this is what it feels like it could have been like. Now, being a vampire game, this also has a day and night phase system built into it. And it allows the It allows the hunters access to do something, and it allows the Dracula player to have his or her turn in order to do something as well. And this back and forth, day by day, literally doing a phase between the day and the night, the sun and the moon, each one of them, day by day by day, is adding on to the experience in this game every time I've played it, no matter which side that I'm on. It brings out this level of excitement in me, heightening it actually, while this is going on, because it is literally feeling like a ticking time bomb. But depending on how well either the Dracula player or the hunter players are doing, depends on who is hearing that time bomb ticking. And I think that element is really great, and it's something else that draws me back to this title. Now, I did already, mention the board. It's not the only part of the game, the component-wise, that is amazing, that I just love looking at. But the board is definitely it. Everything from the box art design is thematically perfect. The board, when you're looking at it, it looks like you're looking at a map of Europe from some 16th century atlas or something. And then the miniatures that are in the game, I mean, it's Fantasy Flight game, so of course they don't really ever kind of cheap out on miniatures, and they definitely didn't here. These are absolutely beautiful miniatures, and I know I've said this before, but I usually only say this about the best miniatures I've seen, and that's, these miniatures make me wish I was a miniatures painter. That's how much I like them. And they're really great to look at on the board. They stand out beautifully, and I don't have a problem at all differentiating who is who as far as the miniatures go. They all look different and unique. The combat system. Now, the combat system took me by surprise, because outside of the obvious what it's based on, there's not a lot of games with this system that really capture me. But I felt like in this setting, this scenario, for this title, I really think that the rock, paper, scissors style of combat with the cards was working great. Because there are only so many things that either side can do, and some things are naturally going to counter out others, and just leaving it as a flat system like that actually also streamlined the combat. I think, anyway, taking away the need of rolling dice, looking at charts or anything. That's it. You play a card, the other player plays a card, and which card beats the other one. It's as simple as that. And it gets the game going. It keeps the game moving. It works really well. Overall, these are great reasons why I think anyone should be playing this game, or at least give this game a shot. The Fury of Dracula. That's why it's on my number 3 slot. My number 2 game, Jaws by Ravensburger. Now, this game is good for 2 to 4 players ages 12 and up, and should take you about 60 minutes or so to play. Now, right off the bat, can't mention anything else without mentioning that this is the 1975 summer blockbuster movie. This is it in a cardboard box. This is a fantastic recreation, not only of the movie, but of the experience of the movie, of the shark hunt. The game does it. It captures that. One of the things that it does in order to capture this is that the game itself is broken down into 2 acts. The first act being placed on Amity Island, and the other aboard the Orca at sea. And this does a fantastic job, a beautifully choreographed job of working up the tension and the anxiety and the suspense, just like the movie itself did. I love the fact that the first part in Amity, it is a little bit of a cat and mouse back and forth, but it's really a time to build up. The player playing Bruce, the shark, is building up by getting as many kills as he or she can, so that they're going to have extra access to more stuff in Act 2, more abilities. Meanwhile, it's pretty much the flip side of the same thing with the players that are playing Brody and Hooper and Quinn, is that they are trying to stop people from being eaten, and the better that they do of a job holding the shark back, the more options they have on board the Orca. Now, the second act Orca keeps up the whole aspect of hidden movement. You don't know where the shark is going to attack, and you got to try to make plans, and you got to kind of just hope that you're going to be right. And the feeling of this is so parallel to the movie itself. You feel a part of it. How each of the characters play, from the shark to the humans, is genius, I think. It makes everything come alive as a story while you're playing the board game. The rules are easy, but there's a lot of deep strategy in this. It is a hide and seek game after all, so there's going to be a lot of trying to outsmart each other. And who doesn't like a game like that? But that's not the entire purpose of the game. So it's adding more onto it. You know, you're trying to stop these kills. You're trying to accumulate items that you're going to be needing. It takes several aspects that I think are fun, and is throwing them all together into a game that's a perfect representation of what it's based on. Which is why Jaws by Ravensburger is number 2 on my list. And my number 1, Letters from Whitechapel. Now, this is also by Fantasy Flight Games, as was Fury of Dracula in the number 3 slot. This game is good for 2 to 6 players, ages 14 and up, and is going to take at least 90 minutes to play. So this is my number 1. Besides everything else that I'm going to tell you about the reasons I enjoy the game, this, because these top 3 were a little tough for me, but this eventually won out for the number 1 slot, because it is the most horrific game on this list, in the sense that it is based on reality. Anyone that believes Cthulhu stuff is real, go ahead, say so downstairs in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the only one that's based on real specific events. Jaws was based on Peter Benchley hearing about the shark attacks along the Jersey Shore and up the river at that time. And so he based Jaws on similar occurrences, but it wasn't a true story. Letters from Whitechapel captures the hunt for Jack the Ripper absolutely on the nose. This is, in fact, because you are playing the officers, this is almost a retelling, reimagining of the classic 1888 Jack the Ripper case in London. So, of course, this is hidden movement. The player playing Jack is a hidden movement character during the game that the other players are trying to corner, stop, and get. They need to capture. They need to stop these killings. And this also uses, in fact, more so than anything else on this list, definitely borrows from and uses inspiration from the Scotland Yard game, especially the way the board looks and traveling along the points of the board. Definitely had me remembering fondly that game, Scotland Yard, from my childhood. And once you get this game down at the table, I haven't had a problem in the past teaching it at all. It's a fairly quick pickup, I've noticed, which is always great because it gets the game started that much quicker. I think the final thing that really ties this all in is the way the game runs with the investigations and the movements and Jack and everything, that there's this slow build-up, right? You get this slow build-up of suspense and a little bit of anxiety that feels like you're personally involved in the hunt, is the best way that I can describe it. But it is definitely this slow build-up. And so you're not even noticing it at first. And then about halfway through the game or so, that's when you're like, holy shit! And that's when you're really starting to take notice to the feeling, this little bit of tension. But it's the sharpening tension. It sharpens you, I find it. And that's the way it affects me. So that's why Letters from Whitechapel is in my number 1 slot.